Okay, welcome everyone to the Saturday meditation. And as always, I was going to say a few words about the ideas around meditation practice, and then we will get down to the actual practice, which of course is what really matters. There's a large number of ways of kind of approaching the idea of meditation. The basic idea is always the same, but you can kind of see these things from many different angles. And one of the nice suttas where the Buddha talks about meditation practice, or kind of rather about how to deal with the mind, especially the mind that where you want to, you're trying to kind of move towards samadhi and stillness and these kind of things. There's a Pali word called adhicitta, which literally means the higher mind. The higher mind is the mind, which is stilled and peaceful, and where you attain this kind of idea of one-pointedness or togetherness or unification or whatever you want to call it. And this is called the Vitakkasanthana Sutta, the calming of thoughts. So different ways in overcoming the thinking mind. And one of those beautiful ideas in there is there's 5 different ways, and 2 of these ways, one of them is not paying any attention to the thoughts when they arise in the mind. You're sitting there, things tend to arise, and very often the reason why they arise is because of habits from the past, what we have been doing throughout the day, what we have been doing throughout our life, what we have been doing in past lives even. All of these things are kind of wired into us, and the habits are so strong that thoughts just tend to come up. And so one way of avoiding these thoughts, which is a very, very common problem in meditation practice, is just not to pay any attention to them. You have to be aware, okay, they're coming up, but you're not really interested. It's not so much that you turn your mind necessarily in a forceful way away. You don't really want to use much force because that is very unpleasant in meditation. It's just that you stay with the breath. You kind of allow the thinking mind to be in the background. The main object is the meditation, the breath, the metta, whatever it is that you're doing, and all of these other disturbances, they're just there in the background, don't really matter so much. So you don't attend to those disturbances. Another way of thinking about it is that you don't feed the disturbances of the mind. The reason why these things come up, the thinking, the defilements, the disturbances, is because we are interested in them. And that interest means that we actually feed these things in the mind. We are kind of intending to think those thoughts. We want to think those thoughts. We want the mind to be disturbed. We are allowing that conditioning and those habits from the past to arise. And so what we do instead, we stop feeding it. And the way to stop feeding it is just to be with it. It's not so much that you're not paying attention, but you just kind of allow it to be there without feeding it further. And as you stay with it without feeding it, again it fades away. It goes into the background, and then you allow the meditation object to come into the foreground. And both of these ways of dealing with the disturbances of the mind, they kind of require a fairly developed form of mindfulness already, because it is the mindfulness that allows you to stay with these things in this way. I was talking last night here about the idea of using mindfulness and also right view for the mind to guide itself. It's as if you are pre-programmed with the teachings of the Buddha. The Dhamma is programmed into your mind. You think about life, you think about the world in the way the Buddha thought about the world, and because you think about the world in that way, your values, your ideas, your preferences, what is important to you aligns with the way the Buddha saw the world. And so when the thinking mind arises, you're not actually all that interested, because you understand it is a disturbance. You understand it won't get you anywhere on the spiritual path, and so you just it just slides off the mind. You have what Ajahn Brahmali very memorably calls the Teflon mind. The Teflon mind is a mind where nothing really sticks. It just kind of goes by itself, and you stay with the breath as a consequence. And so sometimes in meditation, you can just that mindfulness, if you have it there, it will remind you of what is valuable. And the moment you are reminded of what is valuable, all those thoughts, all those conditions from the past, they will just tend to disappear like, some residue in the frying pan with Teflon in it. You have Teflon in your mind instead. And so you just allow the mindfulness to deal with the problems. And as you do that, the habits from the past, as you sit there, become weaker and weaker and weaker. The inclination to think things becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. All of these things lose their power over you, and the mind stills over time because it is informed by the Dhamma, informed by what is truly valuable, kind of standing behind the scenes, directing the mind in the right direction that is useful for these things. So this is a very nice way to do meditation practice because it's very easy. You just relax. It takes a fair amount of mindfulness. It takes a fair amount of having your mind directed in the right way already because you have been around these teachings for a long time, maybe years, maybe decades. And for those people who have that sense of the Dhamma, it is possible to do these kind of things, who have their priorities right, if you like. For other people, this may be not so simple, but I think it is worthwhile trying out because some people can use this kind of methods from the very beginning because they have the right qualities there. So let's try it out in practice and see what happens. Okay, so as always, start out the meditation just by finding that ease, finding the ease in the body, and also a kind of initial ease of the mind as well. And just be on the lookout for any discomfort or any problems. Often they are a result of tensions in the mind or problems in the mind. So by looking out for the tensions and the discomforts, you actually resolve some of the mental tensions, the mental issues that you have at the same time. So it's very useful to look after the body, because by doing that you also look after the mind. And as you resolve these initial problems, that is how you kind of allow mindfulness to come out, mindfulness to come through the fog of the world, the fog of all the things that are happening in life, and gradually becoming clearer and more sharp. And as the initial disturbances fade away, don't be in a hurry to go to any meditation object like the breath or whatever. If you go to the meditation object too quickly, if you make that the main part of your awareness, you're going to not be able to do it. You're going to use your willpower if you do that. And so, in a sense, just enjoy the quality of sitting here. Enjoy the quality of the awareness. Enjoy the peace. Enjoy the sense of a wholesome space that you share with other people. Enjoy just the perception that arises in the mind that are positive. And if the breath is there, just leave the breath in the background. Don't make it the main part of your attention. Make it a secondary object that comes and goes as it wishes. And first of all, build up sufficient mindfulness, build up sufficient peace that kind of allows you later on to stay with the object of meditation. So just go slowly, understand how the process works, do the various things at the right time, don't rush the process. Everything is about patience. When the breath is ready, it will usually come to you, and then you do the breath meditation. And as your mindfulness and meditation progresses, there will always be stray thoughts and ideas coming through your mind. And if they do, just be aware. Just notice their presence and just allow them to pass through the mind. Just to have that awareness that allows them not to be interesting. Reminding yourself of what is the true purpose of meditation, what is really valuable. And what is really valuable is the peace, is the silence, is the stillness, and the energy and the mindfulness that build up in the mind as a consequence. And as long as you remember that, then the mind will incline in the right way here. And that is really all you have to do, allowing that inclination of the mind, as if the Dhamma is speaking to you in the background. You are not driving the meditation. The Dhamma is driving the meditation. It's so easy. It's so delightful. And it just gradually deepens all by itself. And when the mind is ready, you will do watching the breath and all of these other aspects of the path. Okay, so now just spend a few moments just to review your meditation here today. And if you do feel more at ease, peaceful, mindful, any positive quality, then ask yourself why this has arisen. What are the causes that drive this process called meditation? Okay, so let's take some questions or comments from anyone. If anyone has anything they'd like to discuss or talk about, please. Now is the chance. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so let's have a look what we have from the outside of the center here. So, okay, so dear Ajahn, this is from Indonesia. So, is it possible to be mindful during anxious times or say depressed times at the present moment? How does it work best then? Thank you for helping understand mindfulness better. Yes, it is possible to, at least to some extent. It's not maybe going to be the ideal kind of mindfulness, because if you are anxious or depressed, then there is already a bias in the mind. It makes it more difficult to have that balanced mindfulness which understands things properly. But it is possible, but the point is more like how to use that mindfulness at such times, because it's not just about being mindful, it's about using it in a way which is useful. And one of the most important ways of using mindfulness is to understand the mind, understand what goes on, and especially if you have an issue that you like to ideally overcome. No one really likes to be too anxious or too depressed, and so these are things we ideally would hope to overcome. So look for the causes, try to understand why these things are there. And usually, very simply, anxiety is about a fear for the future. You're worried something will go wrong, something is heading in the wrong direction. So it's about changing your attitude to the future. It's kind of the gradual and slow process to overcome that. And depression is about feeling that things are kind of hopeless. You can't get things done that you would like to do, or the world is hopeless or whatever, and you feel that there's no way out. That's kind of the way depression usually works. And that is, of course, not correct from a Buddhist point of view. Buddhist point of view is that there's always a potentially better future. You're not stuck. There is a way out. It's just a matter of getting the conditioning right. And if you look carefully, you should be able to see something like that in your mind lying behind. These are the causes behind the problems that you are experiencing here. Okay, then we have a question from the UK here. So, Ajahn Brahmali, I always get lost in bizarre visions and dreams when meditating here. Are these detrimental to the process? And can you get any insight from them? Thank you. Bizarre visions and dreams, are they detrimental? Yes, they are not kind of ideal. I mean, if you enjoy them, maybe you can hang out there for a while, but you want to go beyond those bizarre visions. Doesn't sound like seeing things according to reality. It sounds like seeing things according to bizarrity or whatever it is called. So yes, you want to overcome that. You want to go beyond it. Can you gain insights from them? Maybe you can, because maybe these bizarre things tell you something about yourself. It may tell you something about, your defilements or problems that you have, things that you may want to overcome. Maybe you need to have, maybe it tells you, the usual things that almost everyone has problems with is maybe sometimes we get too upset and these kind of things. So it may tell you something about letting go, forgiveness, having compassion, these kind of things. Usually, the more you have in terms of compassion and metta, the more peaceful your mind is going to be. You're not going to have bizarre stuff happening. You're going to sleep well at night, and your meditation is going to be peaceful. That's kind of what happens. So usually that will correct those things. But in general, try to look into them and see if you can understand them and see the causes, and then you will have then you will find the tools for how to overcome these things. Okay, and we have a question from Singapore. Dear Ajahn, I am having trouble staying with the breath, and I find it easier to stay with white noise, the sound of bells and singing bowls. Is it okay to use these as meditation objects? You can initially. As you start out your meditation, hang out with some white noise if you like. But ideally, eventually at a certain point, you want to go beyond the white noise because in the end, it's a disturbance to the mind. The idea with meditation is always, ideally, to come to the point where you let go of the senses. The senses, you want them to fade away. And if you are holding on, if you are using white noise, then there's going to be some degree of attachment to those senses. And that's kind of part of the problem. So start off with a bit of white noise, and then after a while, just enjoy the peace or go to the breath or whatever. Very often, the process of calming the mind is gradual. And if you come home from a busy day, I know things in Singapore can get very hectic sometimes. It can be quite stressful. I go to Singapore quite often myself, so I know what people's lives are over there. And so then it can be good to calm down initially just by enjoying something in the five sense realm that actually calms you down. And this may be one of the ways of doing that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Then we have from Hawaii, Aloha from Hawaii. Hello, Hawaii. When I meditate, sometimes instead of thoughts, I will see pictures or music will start playing in my head. It's harder to stop the music than the thoughts. Any tips? Yes. So these are just alternative thoughts, right? Whether it's pictures or verbalization or whether it's music, it's all really the same thing. It's just stuff happening in the mind. So all of these things are kind of thoughts. And the reason why music is so attractive is because it's fun. People love to listen to music, and then it kind of comes back to the mind. If the meditation is really boring, the music is going to be far more interesting. And if you have heard some kind of tune recently and it's in your mind, then suddenly it starts playing out of the blue, not because it comes out of the blue, but because you want to hear it. That's why it is there. You find it more interesting. And so for this reason, it is always the trick of all meditation is to enjoy the meditation and enjoy the qualities. If you really enjoy peace, if you really understand the attractiveness of tranquility, the delight in tranquility, and certainly with joy is very, very easy to stay with it because it's incredibly delightful. Why would you not want to stay with joy in your meditation? It's about finding something better. And as you find something better, that music will eventually die down. It won't be so interesting. And the same thing with the pictures. The pictures, they are there because you're interested in them. Find something better. That's always the answer. When you find something better, then you're on the right track. And of course, ultimately, the spiritual path is better than anything in the five sense world. And that is kind of the point of that spiritual path. And this is what allows you ultimately to go beyond those five senses. And then you are really on the highway to awakening. So there you are. So thank you very much for those questions from around the world. And let's pay respect to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha.